Is it possible for artificial intelligence to be conscious, like a human being? This is part 3 of an ongoing discussion. First off, hi. If you're new there, my name is Colin Jones. I am a veteran of the United States Marine Corps Infantry and a trained clinical research professional who has a background in academic bioethics. Fun fact, I'm running for president in 2028. Weirdly, this video is going to be about AI and consciousness and other topics related to bioethics. Yeah, I know that's going to be confusing, but I said I was going to keep doing this, and you're going to find out I'm a man of my word. If you're interested in my general political platform, please see other videos. This one is going to be about AI and consciousness, particularly phenomenal consciousness experience like we have as human beings. Now, in the past 2 videos, I criticized the idea that current kinds of AI could ever be conscious like you and I are. They will only mimic it and report it. They cannot physically do it. How do I know that? Because all of the available scientific evidence we have suggests that consciousness originates in biology and not as some kind of freak occurrence in physics that can exist in computer systems. If someone tells you differently, just know that they are not using science to support that. They are not using evidence to support that. They're using religion or superstition. I criticize the idea by saying tech bros believe in magic. I apologize for that characterization. That's pretty crass. I wanted to address a part of the claim I made because I think there's some wiggle room there for people who strongly identify or believe in this idea of artificial intelligence that someday becomes conscious. So in my mind, there's at least 2 routes for artificial intelligence to become conscious. Sometimes we use the term AGI, artificial general intelligence, to talk about this kind of AI. Don't think those terms are helpful anymore. In fact, I think those terms are really confusing and don't really have a lot of coherence with the emotions and experiences we associate with them. First way AI could become conscious is that it's made out of meat. This is going to get weird. So if you're not familiar with this idea, we as in scientists, can create computer systems out of lab-grown nerve cells. Just to be clear, academically, as an ethicist, I am against this. As a politician, I think there is a lot of nuance here, and this video is too short for that. The idea is if we could create a non-human brain, so like a brain made of neurons, but still is capable of all the same things a human brain is and is built from similar parts, but itself lacks some kind of distinguishing feature of human biology, like maybe it's somehow made of non-human DNA. This is getting odd. Well, then, in theory, we could create a artificial intelligence that runs on this brain computer, and that could have all the elements needed and probably would to experience reality like we do. That is, it experiences things. It has phenomenalism, so like it is actually living and feeling things and emotions. This is cheating. Like this is cheating. This is technically an artificial intelligence, but this isn't an intelligence in a computer chip that has feelings like love or fear or anger. So let's get more advanced and talk about stage 2. Second way artificial intelligence might have phenomenological conscious is a problem I like to call the lobster problem. I call it the lobster problem in reference to an essay by the writer David Foster Wallace called Consider the Lobster. That essay, part of what David Foster Wallace does is bring up the fact that lobsters are sometimes thought to not experience pain. Crustaceans in general are sometimes thought to not experience pain. And part of the argument as to why they don't experience pain is that they go back so far evolutionarily, they diverge so far back in our evolution that they kind of diverge before we had nervous systems we could reasonably identify as mammalian ones. So is there a question, can they physically feel pain? There is a whole bunch of academic literature and scientific literature on this topic. But it boils down to this, right? They don't have the same equipment as us. So when we say the word pain, whatever kind of pain they might feel when we put them in what we would think of as pain can't feel the same or might not feel the same as our pain. But the question kind of becomes, if the lobster doesn't like it, is it still pain? Because if one extracts what pain is, right, and they have some kind of embodied system that reports a feeling, it seems at least cruel. Like, it seems at least wrong to say, they don't feel pain. Frankly, I don't actually have an opinion about whether lobsters do feel pain. Animal rights is something I'm interested in, but it's not exactly my field. Instead, let's apply this to artificial intelligence, which is something I am a bit of a subject matter expert in. Let's say we build a entirely robotic, non-biological series of sensors. Doesn't matter out of what engineering, we just need to know that they're sensors. And they report information to an AI brain. So not like current technologies. Current technologies don't do this kind of thing. Anyone who argues that they're doing this kind of thing isn't really taking these concepts seriously, and we shouldn't trust them for policy. We build an AI, essentially an AI body, and we hook it up to an AI brain. So a brain that roughly correlates to how humans cognize and think, and also emote. That's an important part of this. But it's, still not made of biological material. So if we then put that thing in a situation where it feels what we would call pain, the question is its pain the same as our pain? It's the lobster problem, right? It's the same problem as the lobster problem, just a one step removed. But it's still the same ethical issue. The fact of the matter is, in this case, we don't have enough empirical information from our position, without knowing more, to actually be able to guess or say whether it does or doesn't have pain. So that's different than other kinds of AI that exist right now, where we have enough information to suggest, no, there's no scientific evidence that it feels pain. This situation would be different. Science would have to investigate. This is not something that we have immediate access to as an answer. Those are two cases where future technology, so technologies that don't exist yet and probably won't exist for a long time, those technologies where AI might be phenomenologically conscious. It might feel phenomena. So when it says a word, it's relating to that word a phenomena in the same way that when we humans say a word, we relate to that word, an actual phenomena, not a token, not some data point. There is a really weird third sort of echelon of this. What about simulated intelligences, like intelligence inside a simulated artificial intelligence system? So like if you play The Sims, right? Like imagine a hyper-realistic world like The Sims, where the NPCs, the non-player character Sims, they are actually built to a one-to-one corollary of a real human being. Some people actually believe that the real world is like this, simulation theorists. I have a lot to say about that. We'll talk about some other time. So the question is, if these simulated beings feel simulated pain, is that pain or is that pain not pain? I think this question initially seems really interesting and then gets really boring. It's in my mind the same as the past two videos. There's no equipment for the NPCs, the simulated intelligences. Even if you do a one-to-one simulation of neuron and nerve and all their body to suggest that their simulatedness corresponds to a biology. So no, they're not phenomenally conscious. That's just to say that out of all the understanding of science we have, this is how things play out. Out of all the empiricism we have, this is how things play out. Science is constantly evolving and constantly changing and constantly learning new things. That's what sets it apart from just simple belief. It is something that can self-adjust and predict future events. So yeah, I had some time to talk about bioethics, and I promise I would keep doing that on this account. That's something I'm really passionate about. I think it's important for all Americans to think about and be a little bit literate in. So thanks for tuning in, following along. Comment your interests. I will try to address them in a future video as I have time. As you can tell by the rest of this account, I am a very busy person nowadays. Thanks again, my future fellow bioethicists. I'll talk to you later.